All right, Zach, I'm going to let you go ahead and lead this part for us. So the playoff implications, do it.
Yeah, well, so let me ask this first. What loss in your mind impacts the playoff race the most?
Notre Dame, because it completely eliminated them. There is no way Notre Dame gets into the playoffs now.
Yeah. So let's just define that more though. When you say no way, do you see zero pathway at all for them to work their way back?
Yes, even if they win the rest of their games, unless they get help from Florida State becoming something more than what we've seen so far, and I think it's even solidified with Florida State looking worse. 0-2 to start the year. It doesn't look like it's getting much better just with the way the team's been playing. I just like I said, even if Notre Dame wins the rest of their games, I don't see them making the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not sure they make it out of Ross-Ade this week.
Yep.
So
Hey, we picked that. Give
I
us
we did.
credit. Give
We
us credit
did.
if it happens.
Yeah, we did. Well, and Eric just referenced like what if they beat USC, an undefeated USC team? That might be the only shot. Um, but I agree. I think that was going to block either another Big Ten team or maybe another Power Four team from getting in. And I think Notre Dame, unless they run the table in an impressive fashion and beat an undefeated USC team, I think that's the only way. Um,
Yeah,
and
you would have to get some help from USC, who has a tough schedule themselves, for them to be completely undefeated. I would
yeah,
agree there, but that sounds like a difficult situation for
yeah,
that to happen.
and I don't think they run the table. I don't think they go 11-1 after this past week. Too many issues. Riley Leonard is not. He's good with his
They're
feet.
talking about benching Riley Leonard.
Yeah, that's disaster going into Ross 8. I mean, it's
Yep,
yeah. So I think here's an interesting one. I think Iowa's out with their
completely.
schedule. Well, because think about it, they play Ohio State, and then what's going to be their best win? Like
I mean, if
unless
they
if
beat
they beat
Ohio
Ohio,
State,
if
that
they
would
beat
be
them,
their.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
yeah,
I mean, it could, I guess. Anybody can win any game, but not anybody. Nebraska at the end of the year. If Nebraska has a really good year,
yeah. So they have a win over Nebraska. Like if they
Washington
if
could
they
get ranked at some point. They're going to play them right after Ohio State, so you could have a possibly ranked team there. I don't know. Go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, so and maybe here's I think the dilemma that I see. I think it's very possible that Iowa State with their schedule is like 11-1 or 10-2 at the end of the season.
Oh yeah.
So you got to pick Iowa over Iowa State, and Iowa State went to Kinnick and beat them. Came
We
back.
saw it last year with Texas Alabama. Like the only reason Alabama got in is because Texas moved up a spot. They were not going to put Alabama in over Texas.
Yeah, yeah. So I won't say that Iowa's like similar to Notre Dame. I won't say they're definitively out, but like I think we both had them kind of in that 11 spot, 10-11 spot. I think it's going to be really hard for them to get in for multiple reasons. Schedule. If they beat Ohio State, we'll revisit this.
Yeah.
If they don't change quarterbacks, they're going to lose by like 5 touchdowns.
Yep.
It's going to be a bloodbath if Ohio State continues to play the way that they have been.
Yes.
All right, what's another? Maybe Michigan is the other one, the other loss that we need to be talking about, and then there's some near misses that I want to talk about too. But talk about Michigan loss. What are your thoughts on them playoff wise?
Yeah, I mean Michigan, like they have a really tough schedule ahead of them, so they're gonna have opportunities. Do I think the opportunities are good? Not really. I mean, they're gonna have Oregon, but Oregon is ranked ninth in the country right now. So if Oregon starts falling off, you're gonna have a hard time with that. But they do have USC here in a couple weeks. They have Arkansas State and then USC. I don't think they have a bye before that. Yeah, their bye week doesn't come until much later. When is their bye week?
It comes October 12th.
October 12th. Wow, that's a late bye week because
Yeah.
Ohio State has theirs this week. Purdue and UCLA just had theirs last week. I guess there's also a bye week in the middle of November. I forgot about that this year with the
Yeah.
five Fridays in November or 5 Saturdays in November. Yeah, so I think Michigan still has a path to it. Do I think the path is likely? Not really. I think you're gonna have a really hard time against USC. Now it is at home, so that's beneficial for you. But then on top of that, you also have Oregon and Ohio State. So the opportunities are there for them. It's just
Yep.
can they capitalize on those opportunities? I
Yeah.
don't feel super confident in it happening after the Texas game, but who knows?
Yeah.
Weirder things have happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's still on the table for the team to gel, right, with all that
Yeah.
new starters. But I think, we talked about this on the OHIO pod with Eric, and Michigan fans in the comments were dogging us. But I said there's a scenario that the first 6 games they go 2-4, and after seeing what I saw, I mean, they have Arkansas State. That should be a win.
You were
You
thinking that they would lose to Fresno State, though, weren't you? For two
No,
and four.
no. So they have USC, Minnesota at
Oh, you were thinking
Washington.
Minnesota more than Fresno State.
Yeah, and this is before the season,
Okay. Yeah.
but like I know I've made fun of PJ Fleck a lot. Minnesota's not a gimme. At
No,
Washington's not a gimme.
they're not a gimme, but Minnesota plays a similar brand of football that Michigan plays, and it's going to be home for Michigan.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not saying it. I'm saying it's more likely that they'll go 2-4 than go 5-1 in this stretch.
Okay. Yeah. I
But
agree.
I don't think they're going 2-4.
I don't think so
Was
either,
there?
but I see what you're saying. The possibility was there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Who? And I'm not just saying Big Ten, but who Big Ten and nationally benefits the most from the losses of these teams?
I think you have to think about whoever is in fourth or fifth place for the SEC right now. I mean, if the Big Ten only gets 3 teams in, you're looking at a scenario where you could see 5 SEC teams in because you have those 3 Big Ten teams, and then an additional ACC or Big 12 team. And then the ACC champ, Big 12 champ, and then the G5 champ. I do think you're going to see at least one other ACC Big 12 team in there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just going to be one ACC, one Big 12 representative. I think it's likely that you, at the beginning of the year, I think it was likely that you saw 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten. But now with some of these teams falling off, like we said, Iowa probably doesn't have a chance anymore. And Notre Dame, they were an independent team that could get in and shake things up, get a spot away from the Big Ten or the SEC. With them probably not having a chance anymore, I think you're probably going to see 3 Big Ten teams in there, and you're probably going to see 5 SEC teams in there.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the
Yeah.
SEC benefits just overall. Whoever is that fourth or fifth place for the SEC benefits the most.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the other team, so I already mentioned Iowa State. I think they are in really good position with their schedule. I think the other team, and this, I don't know if this is going to make Ohio State fans mad. What about Syracuse?
They have an easy schedule. It could happen.
Yeah.
They have the name recognition of Fran Brown from Georgia. He's going to get credit for that. You have the former Ohio State quarterback in Kyle McCord. I almost said Matt McCord. That's not right. Kyle McCord. And that storyline that's going on there. So, I mean, let's be honest. As much as it was about TV a lot for the 14 playoffs, there's going to be a lot that's about storyline, I feel like, when it comes to these 12-team playoff, because there are going to be certain teams that have better storylines that it's going to be more intriguing for people to pay attention to. Maybe they don't have the traditional TV numbers of another team, but they have a better storyline that's going on. I could see the committee catering to a really nice storyline a little bit. A team like Syracuse, if they're right there on the edge and saying, yeah, let's give it to Syracuse because they have a better storyline. I could see it happening.
Yeah.
Not predicting it, but I could see it happening.
Yeah. I think they'd have to go like 11-1. I don't think they could make it on 10-2 with their schedule.
Who, Syracuse?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd have to go 11-1 and make the
ACC championship.
and make the ACC championship game.
Yeah. I'll end with this question, JR. Well, two-parter. So Penn State and Oregon, I think are popular playoff picks. They really struggled this week. One, where do you think they are in the playoff trajectory right now? Like, would you say each of them they're in or they're out? And then my follow-up question is, who from the Big Ten would you put in at this moment?
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to put out like a playoff prediction I think it's Wednesday when I have that scheduled. And if I'm thinking right now, I'm not gonna say for sure this is what it's gonna be, but if I'm thinking right now, I'm probably going to have Ohio State, USC, and Penn State in there. I know Penn State is a little bit of a wild card pick. We know James Franklin and his history, but I do think with that easier schedule and them kind of getting the benefit of possibly making the 12-team playoff the last 2 or 3 years, or not possibly, they would have made the 12-team playoff the past 2 or 3 years. I think they're probably going to give that to them. And let's be honest, the Nittany Lion fans are rabid, and they're going to watch, and they're going to be a really big audience for them to watch this one, especially if Penn State gets a home game. Could you imagine a home playoff game at Penn State? That would be
That'd be
huge.
insane.
Yeah, especially you put
Insane.
it at night, whiteout playoff game. That you can't resist that. ESPN is not gonna pass that up. But yeah, those are probably my three. Oregon, if they play a little bit better, if they start showing themselves doing what they're supposed to do, they can get in there. And then, I mean, I teased them when we were talking about it. Listen, Rutgers, they can
Mhm.
do it. They can do it. I'm not predicting it to happen, but
Yeah.
can they do it? Do they have a path to get there? They have a path, which is you can say more than Notre Dame and Iowa right now. They
Mhm.
have a path. Do I think it's a likely path? No,
Yep.
but they have a path.
Do you think Nebraska has a path?
Oh yeah, yeah. Nebraska definitely has a path.
Yeah.
That was one I probably should have mentioned as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, ranked 23rd right
Yeah.
now. They're going to be playing. Who's left on their schedule? I need to.
They'll play Illinois, who's probably going to be ranked by the time at the time that they
Yeah,
play them.
here in 2 weeks. Yeah.
If Purdue knocks off Notre Dame, not that Notre Dame means as much, but they'll play Purdue.
I mean,
They'll play,
Northern Illinois got ranked after they beat
that's
Notre
that's
Dame.
true.
So,
That's true. Rutgers, they play Rutgers. They obviously play Ohio State. They play USC. They play at Iowa. Like they could go 10-2, lose to USC and Ohio State. Which I have
if they go
Nebraska.
10-2, they could get the 11th spot.
Yeah, yeah. And I have them beating USC. And I'm gonna stick to my guns on that unless I see anything drastic.
Yeah, it's going to
But
be tough with it at USC. I would feel much better about that if it was at Memorial
I
Stadium
I
in
know,
Lincoln.
but I picked it in March. I said it would happen, and daggone it, I'm gonna stick with it.
I'm
So
stubborn.
yeah,
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. Like I'm not saying that I disagree with you heavily. I'm just saying like
you
if it
disagree
was
with me
home,
lightly.
I mean kind of. If it were home for Nebraska, I would feel much better about that pick is
Yeah,
what I'm saying. Like I might join you in that pick if it was at home for Nebraska, but
yeah, that's fair.
unfortunately, I'm probably not going to join you in that pick. When
That,
we
that
when we
and that's
preview that
okay.
game in the middle of November, I'm going to say, "All right, Zach, tell us people why it's going to happen. I'll tell you why it's not going to happen."
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair. Um, yeah, I think for me, as of this moment, I've got Ohio State, USC, and Penn State. I think Penn State's schedule, like I think they lose at this point, lose to USC and Ohio State, but I think at 10-2 they get in, especially with Notre Dame doing what they did. But I tend to agree with you. I think it's going to be 5 SEC, 3 Big Ten. The team actually that I think is going to get left out of the SEC ultimately is going to be Bama
Mm.
because, and it's not because they looked bad against USF. Like I think Bama does this every year where I know it's
They did
Kalen
with
DeBoer
Saban
now.
last year, yeah.
I know, like it's okay, whatever. But their schedule is they play a lot of the other SEC contenders, and I could see them being at 9-3. And I just don't think that's gonna work. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
all right.
No, I
Well,
agree. Well, let's really fast. Before we end this conversation. Let's give our teams in the Big Ten who have a path. Let's count them up really fast. Ohio State has a path. USC has a path. Penn State has a path. Oregon has a path.
Oregon,
Nebraska has a path. Rutgers has a
Rutgers,
path. Michigan have a path? Question mark.
I would say it's a like they have to break through before I'll say that they have a
Yeah,
path.
it's. I would say it's unlikely, but there is a path. I think
Yeah. Could I
so.
give one more that's I mean, certainly a dark horse?
Yeah, this would make 8. Sure,
Illinois.
they have a path. Yeah.
Yeah,
Again, I think it's unlikely, but they have a path.
yeah, but I mean, they have a non-conference win against a team that was ranked. Now, it's a tough path, but
I mean, they're gonna get Penn State early, and now it is at Penn State, so that's gonna be difficult. But if that's a noon game, they haven't set the time on that yet. If that's a noon game, that really, you know, makes it worse for the Penn State home field advantage. They have been their whiteout what 2 or 3 years ago, so I don't know if they'll do that again this year if it's that night game because
yeah,
they are ranked. I don't think they have the
it's Washington.
it's
Washington's
Washington.
the
Okay, I
whiteout.
was gonna say I
Yeah.
don't remember if they have it scheduled or not. But yeah, no, Illinois has a path if they beat Penn State, which it could certainly happen if they beat them and they
Mhm.
beat Michigan, and Michigan is still. I mean, if Michigan gets a win over USC or Washington, Michigan's still probably going to be ranked. And so, if
Mhm.
you're able to go and get Michigan while you're at home, and your only losses are to Nebraska and Oregon, there's a path.
Yeah. And the thing, like, this is judging from 2 weeks. So, like, this is certainly like on overreaction territory. But like, we just saw Penn State struggle. We saw Michigan struggle. We saw Oregon struggle. They don't have USC and Ohio State on their schedule.
Yeah, it's true.
Can you believe we're talking about Illinois playoff? We were not
Zach,
high on them at all, but
I'm just going to say in the offseason, I ranked Brett Bielema in the top half of coaches in the Big Ten. I was called crazy at the time. Are you calling me crazy still? Maybe. That's okay if you are. But are you calling me crazy still?
no,
It's less likely you are.
I I think he was criminally underrated,
Yeah.
and I
I've said it from the beginning. If he can resurge what he had when he was at Wisconsin, he is going to be one of the best coaches in this conference,
yeah,
even with the expansion of USC and everybody else. Now, it's harder to do that at Illinois, but there is talent in that state, and he can make that happen. And he has connections. I mean, they got Zachary Franklin this year out of the portal.
mhm,
That's a huge addition for him that really wasn't talked about all that much. I mean, that's a really good wide receiver who, sure, he had his injuries at Ole Miss, so he was a little bit forgotten after that season. But I mean, it, there's a path. There's a
yep,
path.
agreed.